You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and John.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guitar Talk. This is Dave.
And this is John. How the hell are you?
And we'll wait for that answer.
Indeed.
So it's funny, I was reading this morning that Toshio down over at Exotic Effects bought a Plek machine. And it's funny because I was talking to somebody last week about a guitar that was plecked, and they just looked at me like I was speaking in Japanese. So
Toshio probably speaks in Japanese.
He actually does. Oh, actually, wait, it was Toshio I was talking to.
Yeah, exactly.
But seriously, a lot of people don't know what Plekking is. I know you know what Plekking is. I think Westwood Music at one point bought a Plek machine.
They did, yeah. I think they still have it.
Gibson uses a Plek machine. G&L uses a Plek machine. It's a great...
I didn't know G&L did.
Yes. In fact, when I went down there to talk to them that one time, we did a walkthrough, and it was a way that I could find out how many guitars were actually being produced was by actually talking to the plecker and asking him how many guitars he gets done a day. Because that's your bottleneck. If everything is getting plecked,
right,
well, then he's your bottleneck. So let's discuss Plekking, because I don't think a lot of people know what it is.
Sure.
You happen to know what it is? I know that.
I do indeed. I've had a guitar plecked before.
Yes. So a Plekking machine is when you put the frets on a guitar, and it doesn't have to be on a brand new guitar. It could be on a guitar you've had for 30 years. It's basically you put it into this Plek machine, which is like it goes on a stand. A laser reads down the neck, tells you how much relief you need to change in the neck, and then it'll go and it will file down the frets so that they're all the perfect heights, and then crown them. It is an amazing advantage to have if you have one, because you can get the guitar set up relatively within, I think the tolerance is like 1/10,000th of an inch or less. I mean, it's nuts.
It's pretty cool. It's basically a CNC machine for your fretboard, if you want to think of it in simple terms.
It really is something of that effect. And what happens is, so if you have an instrument and it's been plecked, I mean, unless you're doing something drastic, there's really should be no reason that the guitar shouldn't be set up fairly good.
Sure.
Short of fret lifting, which is not very common in today's guitar building. I mean, unless it's coming out of, some factory overseas, which then the chance of it being plecked is 0 to 0 anyway. So it's a really nice thing. I mean, the Gibsons that come out of that factory, I always tell people, if it's not set up to the way you like it coming out of the factory, because I don't think they have the greatest people doing setups. They're following a like a chart, the dummy charts that people that don't play follow. I mean, you could actually see it. You remember when you and I used to open up guitars out of the box and we'd see the bridge look like a cartoon character of how the bridge was supposed to be set. They're just
of course
eyeballing it. There's no way the distance between the B and the E string should be that far. And it's it's funny, but for the most part, you can pretty much, with a decent if you know anything about setting up guitars even just with a standard tuner, you could set that guitar up to be pretty amazing. So I think they're great things. And Exotic seems to be making some nice instruments these days.
I haven't played one of their guitars yet. I mean, their pedals are legendary. Everybody's at least heard their pedals before, I assume. Are they making their guitars in-house, or are they having Grover help out with that? Do you know the story?
I don't know. And speaking of Grover, I saw that Sasha was working with Dunnable Guitar.
Yeah, he's been working
over
again.
Jackson. And I was thinking we could either have Sasha on the program and talk to him about his upcoming guitars and what he's doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
He's
I'll
a good
reach.
guy.
Yeah,
I talk to him pretty regularly as well.
Oh, you do? Maybe you should
Yeah.
say something. I haven't spoke to him in quite a while. He, he came with me down to Alvas.
Did not know that, I don't think.
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. He came to work for me down there. Yeah, I think he's a great kid.
He is.
Yeah.
Smart guy. Super smart
Oh,
guy.
yeah.
Good builder.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that one time this guy came in. It might have been West LA, and he wanted to get rid of his, he had like a 79 Strat. And Sasha ended up grabbing it. It was great. Got a great deal on it.
Yeah.
Sasha's a good dude. But yeah, so
either way.
but I don't know who helps with exotic effects. I know a guy up there, Johnny, that works with the pedals that I've dealt with, who's a great guy. I think the pedals at exotic. I mean, I love the AC booster, and I'm really I haven't broken down to buy one just because I think they're super expensive, and I have a Buddha wah, but I think their wah pedals one of the few wah pedals that I like the sound of.
If that thing
I am
is
not
so
a,
adjustable, you could make that wah pedal sound like anything, which
and
is really cool.
that's what I like about it because I'm not a wah fan. I always feel like the frequency that they affect isn't the frequencies that I want to hear. Right. And when I heard I remember when a guy came into West LA and he's like, "Hey, can you play the Buddha wah for me?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." So I grabbed the Buddha wah, went into a clean Fender amp, played it for a second. It was like, I hope we have two because I'm buying this thing.
Yeah, that's funny. You're like, it's not for sale.
Right, it was ridiculous. I was like, Jesus, that's only happened to me twice. The other time it happened to me, this guy came into Alvas and was like, "Can you show me the Black Cat Fuzz?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'll show you the Black Cat Fuzz." I plug it in, I start playing. I'm like, "This thing's fantastic."
That's great.
I'm like, and I knew I had two
when you're
stock.
Like, we're closing, and you shove the guy out the front door.
Right, we're out.
Pull down the iron gate.
Oh, I was like, God, I hope we have two. That one we had two, so I was like, oh, this is great because if this guy buys it, I'm getting the other one. I got to do a reorder. And but the Buddha wah I always liked, and I'll tell you, there was another wah that I liked, and that was the original prototype wah that was made by Vox, and we'll talk more about that one on another episode.
I'm curious what that was because I'm pretty familiar with the Vox lineup.
This was the original one that Del Casher owns, and so Del is. I'll let that one out of the bag.
Are you talking specifically about just the one he owns, or is it a re-release of that model, or what?
Oh no, it's the original prototype.
No, I'm sure that. Yeah. Okay. All right. Got it.
Yeah, he has. I don't know if when they made them, they made like 2 or 3 for the first when the guy made them to pass around the place, and Del got one of them.
Cool.
When they went into production, Del says there was something that was changed, and he's not 100% sure what it is, but when he got a production one, it never sounded like the original. So Del, just a little background, Del, he'll come on the show soon and tell his story about it. But Del was the first guy basically to be involved with Vox that came up kind of with the idea that you should put this Veritone switch on a volume pedal and make it this wah thing. And so Del has that original one. And when I went over and used it, I was like, oh, this is really nice. And then he had a regular standard wah, and I was like, yeah, I could see why you would, why you don't like it, because I don't like wahs to begin with. But we have gone down a slippery slope here but basically Exotic makes a great wah. And so they're using these guitars in their Plekking guitars. So folks, if you see a guitar and it says that it's been plecked, like all Gibsons, G&Ls, now it's Exotic Effects, there's other companies that do it. Basically what this means is that this laser system that basically has set up the guitar for you so that it's perfect. I mean, it is perfect. If there are repair shops that do it now, most repair shops do not like to do it if you already have stainless steel frets, because the stainless steel frets eat up the tooling. Some, however, will. However, if you do it with stainless frets, the guitar should never need to be plecked again, and that should be the end of that. I mean, that guitar should be set pretty much for life. It is a great value, and it takes the human element out of the setting up or the leveling of the frets, which,
Right. Do you have any idea what a Plek machine costs?
I don't. I think
I'm
they're at least a few $100,000.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that they're over 200 grand.
Yeah, I would imagine that's what they were.
It's amazing to me because it's not that big of a machine.
Even though they're super expensive, the people that manufacture them are doing anything they can to get you them. So yeah, it doesn't really say what, but it just says calculating the cost of ownership. How about just what do you charge for the machine?
Yeah, I looked for the pricing on one of these the other day. It's interesting to me that you brought up Plek machines this morning because I was looking at this stuff the other day.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, but yeah, you can't find the price of anything there.
You remember years ago there was a guy, he was an Australian guy who had a Plek machine somewhere in Hollywood. And he was trying to get all of the local stores to refer their like fret repair business to him. And as like a promotion going into it, anybody that was at the store that wanted to get their guitar done just so they could preach about it, he would do it for free. So I took one of my Strats to him, and he did it on the machine. I think turned out freaking beautiful. Turned out perfect.
Yeah, no, they're great. They really are a great thing.
That guy, I don't think he stuck around more than a year.
Maybe he was the guy that sold it. Did he sell it to Westwood? Because I thought
maybe he did.
I think he did, because I remember Westwood got it sideways on like some great deal that somebody who got one and then got rid of it. And I think that's how Westwood got it.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and but I'm not sure, and I'm definitely not 100% positive. I'm just remembering what I heard when they got one. They may have bought one straight from the guys, the company. I have no idea.
Yeah, it's funny. I just heard yesterday, speaking of Westwood and Alvas, the guy that was running Westwood Music around the same time you were running Alvas Music is now the general manager at Alvas Music.
Oh, that's funny, because I thought the guy who was running Westwood was buying Westwood.
I'm talking about Leslie Chu.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought Leslie bought Westwood.
I don't know. He's the GM over at Alvas now. So I'm guessing that if he was planning on buying it, that must not have happened.
Oh.
Who owns Westwood? Was it Mark something?
Oh, I don't know. Well, who bought it from Fred Wilecki?
Oh, Fred was his name, not Mark. Yeah. I don't know.
See, I thought it was Leslie that was buying it from Fred. It's funny because Matt over at Alvas reached out to me just to say hello and whatnot. And I knew they were in the middle of changing management and stuff like that. But good for him.
You're talking recently?
Yeah.
Matt seems to run through managers pretty quick.
Yeah. Well, it's tough. I think it's a great store, and I think he's willing. Business. What's that?
Music retail is a tough business.
It is tough, but you have to stick to the guns. You have to, if you're going to commit to something. And Matt is a little, it becomes, he has ideas, and then, you try to, like, I thought I did a lot of good with Matt. I thought Matt and I got along great. And when I felt like my time ran out there, I think I left on good terms with Matt. Well, I must have. He still reaches out to me. We talk every now and then. He was a good guy. He's got a great shop, but it's a family shop. He wants to keep it a family shop, and at the end of the day, it's his shop.
Sure.
And that's basically where you end up. But it's I think that when I pitched a couple of ideas to Matt, I said, you're down in San Pedro, you have to make it a destination shop. This is not a place where you can rely on walk-in. You have to make people think, I got to get in my car and go here.
Right.
And he got that right away. Like, I give him credit that bringing that up to Matt was like, oh, absolutely. And he got that concept right away, and he went full bore with it. We brought in Bogner, we brought in Mesa, we had G&L, we brought in Fender, we brought the pedals from like 20 brands of pedals to 65 brands of pedals. I mean, we really made the place a place where, and we got a repair guy that was in the shop all day. We made the place a place that made people curious.
Sure.
And right. And then when it started, when that was cruising along nicely, I felt like that was my time there wasn't really much more for me to do there. We never got Gibson. It brings me to the concept that I had when I was at West LA, if you remember, about we should have stopped carrying like the Fender mainline instruments and just focused on Fender Custom Shop and Gibson Custom Shop. What was your thought on that?
Well, at that point in time, the economy was really, really trashed. And as the old saying goes, when the economy is really bad, you got to cater to the people that always have money. Right. So I don't know if that's the old saying. I'm sure it's a little bit more concise than that. But
I thought was that you had
Guitar
Center that recently opened up the street.
Right.
And Guitar Center plays the game of catering to the people in the lower market. We had True Tone up the street, and True Tone kind of played the middle of the game too. It played high end and it played low end. Right. And to me, it made more sense to then say, well, why don't we just focus? We are right across from the Village Recorder. Why don't we carry like Fender amps and all custom shop stuff? We could sit there and make every instrument in that place something crazy special. And if you want American standards, we were doing the custom classics, if you remember, and the custom deluxes. Yeah. And those were the best guitars going. I remember the jazz-based custom classic was like so superior to an American standard jazz bass, and for maybe $800-900 more at the time.
All the while you were putting together this grand idea, Don and Gary Harrison were piecing together a 48-piece Dean order.
Isn't that unbelievable?
That's how it went every time.
It was unbelievable. It was like, while I'm sitting there trying to make stuff happen, right, I'm getting 400 Squires coming in boxes going, what the hell? And you can't really compete with Guitar Center at their own game. But the idea was, and Gibson makes it very, and this is what people don't realize, which is why I think the dealer or the new CEO of Gibson has some mountains to climb and some things to prove. It's not just the face of Henry Jeskowitz being, cantankerous and adversarial to dealers and the company being tough to deal with. It's also the fact that you have a store can't just go in and be like, I want to be a custom shop dealer without paying a fortune to the buy-in. And you could seriously have, and I thought that was the way to go, even regardless, because we were doing a serious buy-in anyways. But I think Gibson's custom shop was making some excellent guitars. But I do think that the company, where I see they lose sight is, let's talk about the Firebird. Are you familiar with the Firebird?
Yeah, of course.
All right. What Firebird is available from Gibson right now?
Oh, I don't know. I haven't looked at the website.
Nobody. Yeah. Right. Well, that's the question. The question is what Strat can I get from Fender right now?
Like 75 different Strats, probably.
Any Strat I can think of, they can
unless it's in a color that's good.
Right. But if I wanted a 57 Strat, I can find one. If I want a 62 style, I can find one. But they're all relatively the same. Like a 62 and a 61, we're splitting hairs. But the point I'm making is the Firebird had the Firebird 1, the Firebird 3, the Firebird 5, and the Firebird 7. Why aren't they all available?
That's a good question. And we're going to find out right now what is available in the Gibson Firebird line, because I'm curious.
And I say that because I was watching a guy's channel and he was talking about getting a Firebird and he mentioned Kiss. And I'm like, I always loved that Firebird one that Paul Stanley had on Kiss Alive. One that I think
Firebird 2019.
Yes.
Is what they're calling this. It's innovative and forward thinking. It's forward thinking all the way back to 63 when they introduced it.
Right.
So silly. Forward thinking in 2019. Do you think that it has a reasonable neck on it, or do you think it's going to be a slim taper neck?
Well, they probably have it as a slim taper, but it should have been a little. Yeah. Well, I think it actually, when it came out, it wasn't really that slim of a neck. They were like a little bit beefy, but they weren't big fat necks because it was
Yeah.
63 at that point.
Right. So this is basically a Firebird 5.
So it's got the
The
two mini
2019.
buckers.
It's got the two mini buckers. It's got the raised center, the plied neck.
Yeah.
Um,
Is the inlays block inlay?
Trapezoid, or yeah, like the Les Paul standard style
Yep.
inlays.
Okay. Yeah.
No,
Firebird. Bound neck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Firebird
basically
5.
it's a 5.
Yeah.
They're also doing a Firebird custom that looks like a Les Paul custom Firebird.
Right.
That's kind of neat, but
Yeah, sure.
it's also almost $5,000,
Yeah, sure.
which is typical for Gibson. And they don't tell you what you're getting for a neck profile.
Right, but the point I'm making is
medium C shape. There it is.
And what are the tuners? What are the tuners? Are they the banjo tuners?
No, it's like it looks like the mini Grovers that you get on the Explorer.
Right. So they went against making it the original way they make it. So it's technically not a 5, which is why they're not selling it or calling it a 5, because the 5 would have the banjo tuners.
Yep.
So again,
yeah, it looks like none of them have banjo tuners. I'm looking at their whole Firebird lineup, and all of them have the mini Grover keys, just like the Explorer.
Yeah.
Now the Explorer is reasonably priced. This is a surprise to me. The Explorer is pretty reasonable. I'm looking at the price here, and it's priced out at $16.99, which for a Gibson I think is pretty reasonable.
$16.99. That's what a Firebird should sell for brand new.
$16.99. Well, I'm looking at Explorer at the moment, and it's but it looks like an Explorer. Typical like honey looking trans finish.
Oh, nice. Like the old Carina looking ones.
Yeah. And this is again slim taper, which is too bad, but
right.
Yeah, interesting. I feel like I want to peruse this Gibson website a little bit more and see what all the new prices and everything are, because that surprises me.
Well, you see, but that's my point about like when people sit there and talk about like Gibson and stuff. It's like, why don't you make everything available? Like, why not make it available? Why not have the Firebird that came out a couple of years ago? That was Elliot Easton's Firebird, called the Tiki Bird. Came in one color. The guitar was excellent. I thought it was a great idea to modify. In fact, I was like, now you're competing. Like, there's guys like Cower. Cower, they make the Cower Banshee, the Rival Sons guy, the guitar player for Rival Sons plays one. It basically is a boutique Firebird, but the guy will put any pickup configuration. He makes so many different models. And the Tiki Bird, I thought, kind of competed to Cower. It was like, here, okay, now they're coming after the guys who have been picking up the water off the boat, the gravy coming off the sides. But the problem is the fact that I can go order every Les Paul from a 60, 59, 58. I can order a traditional, a high performance. There's 9 billion Les Pauls. A Firebird, which was a cool guitar, you can't order a regular Firebird 5 or a 7 the way that like Johnny Winter played one, or a Firebird 1 like the old Kiss Paul Stanley. Now, when they do come out with it, they'll probably call it the Paul Stanley. Go to Paul, put an extra charge on it, and charge $35,000 to $5,000 for it.
Right.
And that's the problem with Gibson. So he can sit there and say, we're 125 years. We're a company that really, wants to celebrate how great and iconic a brand we are. Yeah, you're saying nothing. How about come up with the fucking guitars that people wanted from Jump Street? Why don't they make a modern? That should be those guitars.
Nobody wants them.
Nobody wants one except everybody.
Everybody.
The ugliest guitar historically that has like the biggest story behind it. And it's like, and you know what? That's the thing I can't stand. I have to say this. Stop telling me you want to tell the story. Nobody is buying guitars because they want the story. Oh, we've been together 125 years. Yeah, we're celebrating. We want to tell the story of Gibson. Yeah, anyone that's ever picked up a guitar knows the story. If the hero Slash plays it, they want to buy a Les Paul. If the hero was Jimmy Page, they want to buy a Les Paul. If the hero was Johnny Winter, they want to buy a Firebird. If the hero was Matthias Jobs, they want to buy hand warmers because they live outside. No, if the hero was Matthias Jobs, they want to buy an Explorer. It's simple how it works. There is no story that tells me, oh, you mean this is how this was, and Les Paul, oh, I'm gonna buy that because that's such an interesting story. No, it's not how it works. And it's like, and if you're coming out with new things, while Gibson and other companies are trying to tell the story, companies like John Suhr and LSL are modifying the instruments to make them more playable in today's market and selling them off the shelves. So they don't have to tell a story.
All right.
Yes, by having a story, you have a built-in market that already wants your instruments. People hear the name Gibson and they are like, that's an iconic brand. Great. It's like Levi's. If I was to go, listen, I'm going to go buy a pair of Levi's, but I go put them on and I look like I'm in the Salinas clown show on Canon and I'm wearing these big baggy, walking around, I'm in these Levi's. I don't care how iconic the brand is. I don't want to wear these jeans.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's
totally.
like, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to, and I hate saying at the end of the day, but you have to back up your product with something that somebody wants. And how are you, like, you have so many lines of guitars if you go on that site. How come you don't have any Firebirds? Not one real Firebird. Like, even if you said, oh, this year we're going to make 1s and 3s. Next year we're going to make 5s and 7s. And alternate them every other year and say on an odd year we're going to do this. Do it. Why are we not doing it? Why is there like, how come no one's ever come up with a Gibson, like a 74 SG with the harmonica bridge? Why aren't they re-releasing that?
Harmonica bridge.
Are you not familiar with that?
You're not talking about the Maestro Vibrola.
No. So a harmonica bridge it was made by Schaller for Gibson. It was when Gibson was retooling, I believe, the factories, and they were moving SG production.
Oh,
and
I know what you're talking about. It's a real wide-looking, ugly bridge.
Right. It was made by Schaller for Gibson, and it's always referred to as the harmonica bridge.
I never heard it referred to as harmonica bridge before. That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, if you Google harmonica bridge, you will see the Schaller bridge. But that 74 is an iconic type of looking 70s. Like, here's what I think about Gibson. Nobody at Gibson is really into music. They're all guys who are part of marketing guys. And they go and here's a guy that worked for Levi's. He's now going to work at Gibson. He's going to go sit there and be like, we've been together 125 years. We have a story to tell. We're an iconic brand. Everybody loves us. Yeah. Can you make a fucking Firebird? Can you make an Explorer? Can you make something? Can you not just offer the Les Paul in one flavor of vanilla? We're going to offer you a 50s Les Paul the way you want it, with a slim taper neck, just the way Gibson never made it. Oh,
right,
okay.
Exactly. Here's the story. We're corrupting the story.
Right, exactly. Well, it's funny. I was talking to RL about Bohemian Rhapsody, and he's like, this is why you never die first.
That's fantastic.
Because people have the opportunity to go back and change your story and make you look like a screaming douchebag.
Right.
The movie's terrible. If you haven't seen Bohemian Rhapsody and you're waiting for it to come out on cable or something, I'm just going to tell you right now, the movie absolutely sucks. Freddie Mercury was a very humble, funny, witty, but brilliant musician. He was a musician. This movie makes him seem like he's like this mincing homosexual like Dr. Smith on Lost in Space. It is absolutely ridiculous.
That's hilarious.
It's ridiculous. And it's like they don't talk about how musical he was. He shows up late, he's partying his ass off. He was a serious musician. And I'll tell you right now, Brian May and Roger Taylor, if for any chance you're watching this episode or this podcast, for whatever reason, you should be ashamed of yourself for putting your name on that movie. That is all.
Very good. Well,
Yes.
I have a bone to pick with Gibson right now myself, and it's a little
excellent.
different. I feel it's time for a whip around. This one's just for you. The 1964 SG Standard reissue.
Okay.
With the Maestro Vibrola. How much do you think that guitar, when it originally came out in '64, how much did that guitar cost?
Ooh, that's a great question. I'm gonna first of all,
I don't know the answer. I'm just letting you guess, because the real question is going to be, what do you think they're charging for it now?
Okay, so 64. I'm trying to think what would be different. So in 64, it's going to have the ABR1 bridge with the wire. Is that right? 61 was the year they changed the ABR to the ABR1 with a wire retainer. So 64. Was this full pickguard, or is this still? I think full pickguard didn't come till 66. Is this still mini pickguard?
Yeah, this is the small pickguard.
Well, small pickguard. Okay, small pickguard. So why make a 64 other than having that retainer? Oh, and then the pickups are going to be the patented pickups, the Seth Lover pickups. So I'm going to say they probably put 57 classics in it because that's what it would have. I'm going to say the original price when that guitar came out was, so this is 60s, $325.
Okay. All right. I wonder how inflation against the 60s work today. I'm going to pull up an inflation calculator.
All righty, excellent.
Because why wouldn't I?
And now this guitar is made in the custom shop. The 64. This is a custom shop instrument from Gibson. Okay, so I have an idea of the price.
Okay, let's see. $325. Wow, it's a lot of inflation. $325 would be $2,638 today.
That's what the guitar actually should go for. It comes out of a custom shop. That guitar. That's really what it should go for.
$2,638. Right. Okay. Well, what do you think it goes for?
My guess, you said custom shop. I'm gonna lowball it and say $59.99.
No, that's high. You're high. You're way high. Yeah. I think for an SG, this is still super high though. So the street on this is $4,600.
Street.
Yes. $4,600 for the SG Standard 1964 reissue with the Maestro Vibrola.
Almost twice of what I said it would be, what it should be worth, about 26, what you said earlier. That's where I would place it as being a value. There's no value in 4,600 for an SG.
No. I mean, I look at the spec list, and this is the thing that guitar players out there need to appreciate the service that we're providing here, because let me tell you some things, guitar players out there. It doesn't cost the company very much money to fit together a guitar with hide glue versus wood glue.
Same damn thing.
Yeah, nominal cost difference, nothing. And then they start saying, oh, but this one has, whatever stupid capacitors in it. It's got Black Beauty caps versus orange drop caps. First of all, you can't hear it. Second of all, who cares? It's a couple cents difference, but they're charging you a large increase. For them, soldering 2 points on a pot, putting a cap in it. It's ridiculous.
Orange cap might cost $2. The other one might cost 50 cents. You have $1.50 in difference. You have so let's just say this. What's the cheapest SG? The difference in cost from parts to manufacturing from the cheapest SG to a $4,600 SG. And I'm going to just take a guess here because I think you can buy an SG in parts. Might cost you $300 in parts with the wood. And then you got labor. Let's call it $400 to manufacture an SG, a cheap one that costs $9.99. To make one that costs $4,600, that same cost is costing you maybe $600, maybe at best.
And that's only if you're increasing the premium of the wood.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
no, I'm increasing everything.
Yeah.
I'm going for the high grade everything when I bump that price, because
Yeah.
the premium in a wood is going to cost you $15 of natural wood cost. The actual putting it on the CNC, making it cut, or however they're cutting it, and then you have the set neck, regardless of what glue you use, that's just a few dollars more. You really the cost difference is never gonna, and the same goes for a Fender Strat. A
Yeah.
USA standard Strat, the cost might be $400, $500. The cost of the custom shop that costs $4,000, if it's not relict, is costing you roughly about maybe $500 to $600.
Yeah. I mean, you're paying an increase for what's expected to be a more experienced builder putting your guitar together, which that's reasonable, that's fair. But I think you're paying a real hefty price tag for marketing and sex appeal.
Are you kidding? Do you remember when they came out with the thin skin Nitrocellulose Stratocaster? They came out in vintage white, but it wasn't. So it's thin skin, so your guitar vibrates. Okay, well, how do you seal the guitar? We seal it in Fuller Plast, which is basically liquid plastic as filler. Oh, lovely. And then you spray nitrocellulose, but only a thin coat.
Right.
So you're using less paint. Okay, great.
Right.
I'm glad I'm saving you money.
Right.
And how much more are you
Isn't
charging
that funny?
me for this Oh, it's absurd. And people are sitting there going, oh, my guitar, listen to this thing vibrate. The sustain. Some guy the other day was commenting on one of my posts because I was commenting about sustain. And, the actual thing about sustain is, if the guitar is vibrating more, like if this, here's a guitar. So if I hit this string and it vibrates, it has a tone, it vibrates, and we're hearing it acoustic right now. We're listening to the forced resonance. And if this thing if I had a different piece of wood where this was vibrating a lot more, it feels like the note sustains longer in my hand because I'm holding on to the body. But that absorption of vibration that the body is doing is actually causing, and it's only in nanoseconds, it's causing the string to vibrate less because it's acting as an absorption of vibration. And absorption of vibration is what causes low sustain. The same would be if I'm playing at an altitude of 6,000 feet, or if I'm playing up in Vail and I'm playing at an elevation of 12,000 feet, or I'm playing by the beach, the guitar is going to sustain differently because the atmosphere is thinner and less drag on the strings, less absorption of vibration. So this guy was like, oh, you don't know what you say it doesn't affect it doesn't understand the difference between tone and sustain. But it's just one of those things where it's like the paint is not going to affect your guitar just because you feel that the sustain is longer because your guitar vibrates. You may enjoy how the guitar feels when it vibrates in your hand. You may like that, and that may be your preference, but that is not affecting what is coming out of your amplifier. Fender knows this. They don't care. Their job is to make money. So however they can market it, if tomorrow somebody convinced the world that more paint meant more sustain, they're going to come out and say, we're going to charge more, an upcharge now for the extra paint. Well, what was the charge
absolutely
before?
True. Yeah.
It's only where they can charge. Now, when we were making guitars, if I bought the wood to make a blank, an alder guitar body would cost me between $20 and $25, mainly like around $20 for the blank. Mahogany would cost around $40. So go see what it costs to have somebody upcharge and make you a mahogany Strat. We're talking about a $15 to $20 price increase for the wood. Somehow comes out to $400 on the retail.
Sure.
It's insane.
There's some companies that do it very fair. Warmoth is pretty fair about theirs. I think the upcharge is $15 or $20.
Warmoth is one of the companies I stand behind and will constantly promote, regardless that I don't ask anything of them. When I promote them because I want to, because that's what I use and that's what I believe in. And I believe in Warmoth products. I believe they're great. I believe that I believe G&L is also very fair when it comes to upcharging for different things. Great company.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, do you remember years ago, Mike Todd released an article talking very specifically about all of the vintage Fender guitars and the lore behind the paint and the nitrocellulose and all that sort of stuff?
No.
Okay. It was a pretty comprehensive article. I remember it being pages and pages long. And I read through it, but then again, this is 10 years ago. But it was interesting because he was basically dispelling nitrocellulose a little bit and people's desire to chase
Was it an
it.
open letter? Was that the one that was like an open letter, and then at the end he was like, when you're playing 100 decibels on a stage, you're not hearing it, and then he listed all the players that play polyurethane versus nitrocellulose. Is he a master builder?
Yeah, he is.
Oh, okay, that's the article. Yeah,
You probably have. Yeah. I come to think of it, I don't know if he's a master builder or if he was like the head of marketing at Fender. He was something. But
yeah.
either way, the article pretty much said, like, right from Jump Street, a Fender guitar wasn't exclusively finished with nitrocellulose, and people that worry about it weren't aware that, like you said earlier, all of the wood filler and the primary coats that went on before the nitro was applied were all other materials.
They used Homoclad and Filoplast, which was basically liquid plastic in drums. Yeah. They used to dip the guitars in drums, dip them down, let them dry, and then sand it down, then spray the nitrocellulose.
Right. The nitro was for the bright shiny top coat. That was it.
Yeah.
All the way back.
Right.
So when everybody's worried about whether or not it's nitro, the reality is it doesn't matter. Right.
And they use nitro top coat on top of it, which was why Olympic white became vintage white, because that yellowed.
If you like the look of an old guitar, if you like the fact that your guitar will checker, and if you like that it will discolor over years, by all means, chase nitro.
Yeah.
But I just think you're chasing your tail if you're chasing tone of nitro versus poly or whatever.
Well, I mean, look, you can go listen. I say this to everybody all the time. If you're a Pink Floyd fan and you're a David Gilmour fan, go listen to the records and tell me what wood he's using on his fingerboard. He changed his neck almost every album. He went from maple to rosewood back to maple. You tell me which one's which. And then people sit there and be like, oh, I can tell. Then you go, oh, yeah, what's he playing on another brick in the wall? That's a Strat. No, that's a 56 Les Paul. You can't tell. I mean, you get down to it, it's like people go crazy over the minutia. And it's like, and I'll say it too, and I sound mean when I say it, and I don't mean to be, well, I kind of do. But it's like, when somebody sits there and says, oh, I could tell the difference. I'm like, you can't even tell when you're in tune. Like, what are you talking about? You can hear the wood. You can't even tell me when you're in tune. Your bends are flat. Your bends are sharp. And then it's like, you're going to sit there and tell me you can hear the difference between swamp ash and alder on the body? I'll take that bet all day and bring cash. Bring cash, please. I don't want to be cashing checks. It's like, it's insanity. There's no way in hell you can tell the difference.
I would ask the question, how can you tell if the guy is playing a rosewood or a maple fingerboard if you don't know whether he's using a Monster Studio Series cable or Pro Series cable? No, I'm totally joking.
Oh, no, of course. It's absolutely absurd.
Do you remember they had the time correct windings?
Oh, my God.
The Monster bass cable and the Monster guitar cable.
One time I took Rick Waite into the amp room and I said, Rick, let me show you something. And I had him turn around and I played the Megami cable and I played the I played the monster cable, and he went back and forth, and I said, which one's better? And he's like, this one far better. And that was the Megami. And he was like, why is that one so much better? And I'm like, listen, the marketing for the monster cable is what you're paying for. You're paying for the fact that you can buy a cable that costs them $3 to make for $50. And if it breaks, you can go return it. And how many times do you think people are going to do it? They probably feel guilty after the first time. So they've given you $6 of product for $50. It's a winning thing.
Right. They to take it back around. We want to tell the story of Monster Cable.
The bass lines. Yeah.
Yeah. It is ridiculous.
Really does.
Yeah, it's a bit of a racket. It's important for people to remember that there are certain pieces that go in your signal chain that are passive pieces. They do not add. There's, the definition of having something that's passive is it's not additive. The best you can get from passive is it doesn't detract.
Right.
So it's really important to remember that a cable at its best is going to give you natural reproduction. Mm-hmm. There's not going to be, this cable is going to add bass. Unless it's somehow active, which it's not going to add anything. Mm-hmm. So,
yes,
that's my complaint.
Yeah, well,
I watched it.
They had, they had, so, I mean, to me now, it's like Guitar Center makes the cables that have a lifetime guarantee and they're relatively inexpensive. To me, I'm like, just get those because...
The Livewire or whatever?
Yeah. Because you can get them, you replace them, the place is there, you can go in if they're close to you, deal with that. I still have, God, what are those cables I have? The braided ones. Who made those braided ones that Gary Harrison used to rep?
Spectraflex.
I have Spectraflex from 2000 that I still use at gigs, and they're fantastic, and they still work, and they're great, and they weren't expensive cables.
Yeah, if you've got a solid metal end, and you've got decent quality cable, and you know how to solder, I mean,
yeah.
A company like Spectraflex, they use a decent quality wire and decent quality ends, and they solder well, and a cable will last you a lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, my problem is I think like a lot of guys should really, and I say it on my channel all the time, go practice, master the craft. It's like I was listening to, I was teaching drums to a song called All Night Dancing by the Jacksons, and the intro comes, and I said to the kid that was playing drums, I love this section. What are these are like all 11 chords. And he's like, what? And I'm like, well, that's an A11. That's going to be a D11. That would be an F11 and a G11. And he's like, well, how can you hear that? I'm like, I can hear it. I know that sound. It's like, it's embedded now in my head, that chord. And the other day we were listening to a song by Gene Carn called Don't Let It Go to Your Head, and it goes to the bridge. And the bridge is a B11 into a C major 7 and back and forth. And it's like, I can hear it now, that is something that has value, because when I hear those chords, if I'm to play over it, I know where I am in the song. I know what to do. I can hear those things. That's a value. That's being musical. That's things that I think about when I hear a song and I hear a chord. I'm like, I want to remember what that sound is, because that's a beautiful sound. To me, that's what music's about. That's like a beautiful thing. I could care less if someone says, the paint's coming off on that guitar. That thing must vibrate. Great. Yeah, shut up. Well, yeah, it's like, it's just nonsense, because what does that have to do with music? It doesn't. It has to do with being a dilettante. All of a sudden, it reminds me of one Sean Marshall at 14, from 14 to 19. Now, I talk to Sean still. I think Sean's a great kid. And Sean has matured a lot as far as understanding music and becoming so much more musically evolved and involved. But if you recall, when Sean was working with us at age 19, what if I took a mahogany body and put it on an ebony finger? Shut the balls up and play. Just shut up and play. Like,
and that's the general message of this episode. It's just
play. Shut the balls up and play. Get practicing. It's like, don't sit like, when people sit there and and this is why I hate modes, because when people talk modes, they talk about it. And I'll tell you, I'm going to get to something else, but when they talk modes, they want to talk because they spent the time to learn that, say, A minor Dorian, it's you raise it's the key of G in the second position. Who cares? Just call it the key of G. There's no reason for you to go now calling it all these Latin and Greek names, whatever the hell they are, because you want to show somebody how smart you think you are. It's just the fucking key of G. It's just, so you're centering the notes on A. Ooh, it's the same 7 notes, the same 7 chords, the same scale. It doesn't matter. And this is why people get offended when you tell them that the wood doesn't matter, because you have all these guys who grew up playing guitar going, listen, what I learned is that mahogany is a darker tone than rosewood, and ebony is even brighter, because yes, that works when you're talking about an acoustic guitar and forced resonance. On your electric guitar, folks, it doesn't matter. And if you go around thinking it matters, you're just going around trying to show people you think you're smart, but you're not. Because it doesn't matter. Because if I blindfolded you and played 9 strats, all with different configurations, you couldn't tell me what's the difference. In fact, you can't even tell me if the fucking thing's in tune. And on that note, a word from our sponsor.
Well, you and I are both amp nerds.
Yes.
And I seem to recall, like, being in the music store and just being in the guitar community, people are so much more finicky about their instrument than they are about their amp. And I feel like they're constantly looking at the wrong part of the equation to fix whatever their mental problem is. If a guy's got a guitar and he's like, I think it, I wish it was a little brighter, I wish I had a little more sustain. Meanwhile, they're playing, an
FM12.
Yeah, an average at best amplifier with their really, really nice guitar. And, they're like not willing to realize that if you want a little bit more of a different attitude out of your amp, maybe you either need a new amp or a different speaker. A different speaker is going to make a world of difference more than a different fretboard material.
People don't realize, number one, it's the amp. But there's also the people on that other end of this, on our end of the spectrum, that are amp nuts. And it's like,
and sometimes that goes way too far.
Yeah. So the thing is, if you play and you practice, and it's like, it's funny. Like I said, I have a lot of pedals, and like I'll usually have my fat boost on, my buffer, my compressor, and an AC booster, and the sound is like clean. But it sounds like a gorgeous amplifier. My Hot Rod Deluxe will sound like a Victoria. It's like, it really blooms nice, and it has like a nice breakup. And it doesn't matter what I'm playing. I can play anything, and people are like, oh, let me play it. And then they go to play it, and they're like, oh, this is like harder to play than I thought it would be with all these pedals. And I'm like, what do you, like, the pedals like are magically making it easy to play, which it doesn't. It's just a sound I'm looking for. But when I play, I practice acoustically. I don't really care. The tone is not what's making it. I can play clean, dirty. The sound is the sound for the listener. It's not for me to play. You know what I mean? And people need to just focus more on their playing and get comfortable and okay with their playing, where they can plug into any amp and be okay. If you recall, we had, what were those? We had a Marshall DSL 401 on the floor at West LA. We hated that amp. We were not necessarily Marshall fans to begin with. It doesn't have a tremendous amount of gain. It's not a great sounding amp. And now Anton O'Parent comes in to do a clinic for us, and he plugs right into the amp, and he starts playing. And you and I are like, what amp is that? It's like the kid sounded ridiculous in that amp.
It's all him.
And it's all him. It's all the player. And here's a guy that plays, he's unbelievable. He's playing this amp that you and I have looked at and overlooked, I would say, never once wanting to plug into the thing. It's not a great sounding amp. And this guy sounded like $1 million. And it was like, when he played, one thing I noticed is he wasn't even playing the amp. He was just playing.
Right.
And yeah.
Not for nothing, but a handful of years ago, I picked one of those up used for like $200.
Yeah.
And I swapped out the speaker that was in it for a real vintage 30.
Yes.
The amp sounded 10 times better.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good amp.
I think that amp is underserved by the speaker they put in it, because they put like a value Celestion in it.
Right. Yeah.
Which is,
well, I mean,
you know,
I
it's
have the
expected.
50. I have the 50 watt in the head back here on the JCM 2000.
Right.
I think that the amp's a great amp, especially you put a little pedal in front of it. Like I think Jeff Beck used to use the Klon. That's something else I want to discuss, folks. Let's discuss while we can the Klon.
What is the used value of a real Klon? Like $2,000 or something?
Yeah, 1,500 to 2,000. Is the Klon better than the Timmy? Is my question for you today. If you think which is better,
crazy.
What's better, the Klon or the Timmy? Now, I have a Klon clone. Now, years ago, some group of people they bought an expensive Klon, they took it apart, they took all the goo off of it so they could actually see what it was, and they posted everything. And I think there was an argument about which germanium transistor was being used, but it was finally admitted by Bill, whatever his name, Finnegan, who created the Klon, and that everyone started making Klon clones. Everybody makes a Klon clone, and I have a clone, Klone, by Matthew Effects, who now calls it, I think he renamed it the Architect, but initially I have the original one that was called the Clone, Klone. And I have to keep spelling it so I remember myself. No, so and it's a decent sounding pedal. It actually sounds like a tube screamer. And it's very similar. It might be a little nicer in some respects for some other things, and it's not as nice in other effects. It might have a little bit more fuzz to it than a tube screamer, a little bit more natural fuzz. But overall, I don't think that pedal is worth anything. Buy a boutique knockoff. You're going to have the same thing. If that's the tone you're looking for, buying an original Klon, and it's the exact same circuit in the gold case, and you have guys who are out there going, let's compare the gold Klon to the silver Klon. When Bill Finnegan's come, and I think that's his name, he's come out and said they're exactly the same. The chassis changed because he was buying, and you know what I mean? It was more like out of a necessity that who the manufacturer was making the chassis for him. They're the exact same pedal. So when these people are comparing the Klon pedal, the gold to this, you may as well compare a silver to a silver or a gold to a gold. The values of the electronic parts inside are going to vary. There's no such thing in this world as an exact copy, an exact duplicate. So you're going to have the values as close as he can get them to, and there's going to be some slight difference of sound. In every single one of them, there's going to be, let's call that a tolerance in sound value. And so it doesn't matter if you're comparing the gold to the silver. You're actually comparing two identical circuits is what you're doing. But these people who are nuts for the Klon, I think the Timmy is a better pedal, personally. And I think if you're out there and you're looking for that type of boost, I would suggest the Timmy. I would suggest the AC booster by Exotic as being fantastic, as being a better pedal. But for some reason, these people out there with the Klons are like, oh, I got a Klon Centaur, an original, because Jeff Beck played one into a JCM 2000 DSL 50. Now everybody's like, oh, it's the I'm gonna sound like Jeff Beck. Yeah, you're not.
Good luck with that one.
Yeah, you know how you're going to sound like Jeff Beck? Get back in your room and practice and stop worrying about what pedal he used. Somebody once said to me, I posted on Facebook, I'm looking to have that Stevie Ray Vaughan tone. Yeah. Take lessons. It's just, you know, play. It doesn't matter what it is. You can go find something that sounds good. I watched a guy the other day. He was playing an old 2203 amp, which is the old JMP one, though the before the Ace 79. So it's before JCM 800. So it doesn't have the effects loop. And the guy was putting in front of it. What's the Boss version of the Tube Screamer?
Oh, Super Overdrive?
Yeah, what's that? The SD1?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The yellow pedal, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. It's exactly a Tube Screamer. It's all it is. But it might even be nicer than a Tube Screamer. But this thing sounded phenomenal. This guy's using a pedal you could buy for $40 used on the market in front of a nice amp. But the thing sounds gorgeous. You don't need a Klon. You don't need any of these things, And so why is the Klon so revered? Well, Bill Finnegan, who created it's out there saying, when I didn't like the Tube Screamer and I wanted something that had more bass and more transparency. Folks, go watch any video where people's comparing the Klon to the Tube Screamer. You can't tell the difference. I don't care what the story is. If you're buying the story, you aren't listening. You know what I mean?
We've been around for 125 years.
We are an iconic brand. We were together 125 years. We wanted you to tell the story of Gibson guitars.
Maybe the same guitar players that are buying the Klon are the same guys that are buying like the $350 pairs of jeans,
Yeah.
Some people just that's what they want. They want the brand. It's not about the tone. It's not about the art. It's about the procurement of fine goods.
Well, that's what the guy who runs Curly, what's his first name? Something Curly, right? The guy who's now the CEO of Gibson.
Oh,
I thought that's
I don't know what his name is.
Yeah.
Former
Curly,
Levi's guy.
Curly Neal. No. Curly Neal was on the Globetrotters. But the guy's something Curly. It's Curly or Curly.
Mo and Larry.
Right.
His last name's Mo and Larry.
Curly Horvitz. His real name's Jerome Horvitz, everybody. No, so this guy, something Curly, I forget what his first name is, Mr. Curly, CEO. It's all about trying to tell the story, and it's like, yeah, you know what? Strip down. Here's what I suggest to Gibson. Start from scratch. Say to the guys at the board, at the meeting, at the marketing meeting, take every guitar off the shelf and say, we want to have 20 guitars come out for 2020. What 20 guitars would you come out with? What would be an iconic thing of the brand that people want? You don't even have a Firebird. You have like this Firebird. Not if it doesn't have the banjo tuner, to me, that's not a Firebird. Make the damn Firebird. Make it the way it was made. If you're gonna sit there and say, "Oh, the brand's iconic," well, then make it the way they made them. If you're making a 50s style Les Paul, put a big fat ass neck on it. Stop offering vanilla to everybody.
Right, Matt, I hear you. But this is why the market is allowed to exist with a whole bunch of other smaller manufacturers who get to make really cool stuff to fill those gaps.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're letting exactly. But see, now
letting
if you
it happen for sure.
That would be the exact thing I would say in that meeting with him. I would be like, listen, yeah, you don't want to do it. That's fine. Other people are going to take that money from those people. And it's a lot of money because it's a lot of companies doing it. And they're all making a living.
Sure.
And they're making a living because you're dropping the ball. Why is it so expensive to buy a Les Paul Special double cut, which was like a student model guitar back in 1960, and you're charging $4,500 out of a custom shop for it? You've lost your mind.
Yeah, it's like the only customer that they want to serve with that is a high-end customer. It was a low-end guitar, and they want to serve a high-end customer. That's a weird one. I agree.
And then they released it on the 2000. What was the year they had the 100 on the? Is that 2015? When the 100 was
15 or 16? Yeah.
Yeah, when their anniversary. So that year they had one, and they made it ugly. They took the pick guard, they moved the knobs because they don't want to confuse it with the high-end one that they're charging a fortune for. It's like, but you couldn't make it look good. Like you can't get a guy to come in here and still, it's, you know, my buddy Sullivan.
Yeah.
We had this talk years ago. You have these car manufacturers that come out, and this is back when like Ford was making the Taurus and the Escort. Who the hell would make a Ford Escort? Like, who's designing that body and saying this is what people are gonna like? If you can design a car body, you can design it to make it look like anything. That's not in the cost. Just make it look nice. Who cares what the engine is? But it should be a sleek, nice-looking car. Who the hell made the Ford Escort and said, yeah, we're selling it. Here's an inexpensive car. Here's the shape. It's a box. Yeah, great. Yeah. And now we're scratching our heads going, why is our sales low? And why is Toyota making so much money? Well, because the Camry looks good. They're making an inexpensive car where they actually spent a little money on the design. Yeah. So if you're going to sit there and you make a low price guitar, you can and not stay to the original form of the vintage, you can still make it look good.
Well, I seem to remember like 10 years ago when Gibson started re-releasing all of these, like the early versions of like the tribute models. They still run tribute models for everything, yes. But the early versions that were like sub $1,000 looked like they were painted with a paintbrush and fence paint.
Yeah.
You remember that? And you were just like, what?
Right. Well, remember they did that with the BF. Well, I think that started. Remember the BFG?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Humbucker in the bridge, P90 in the neck. And it's
was that like, supposed to be barely finished guitar or something like that? Is that what that is?
Exactly. Right. And it looks like they painted it with a hairbrush.
Well, the top wasn't even sanded. It was like they did the carving on the CNC and left it.
Right. Yeah. And it was like, this is our cool guitar. We're not. And, I'll go to the Gibson Swamp Ash model.
Was that a Gary Moore signature at that point?
No.
Oh,
so they had the Swamp Ash guitar, Swamp Ash, beautiful Swamp Ash, ebony fingerboard, no inlays, and came with a hard shell case. Beautiful. Yeah, let's make this cheaper. Let's use rosewood. Let's put dots on it. Let's make it look ugly, and we'll charge less. And now we don't sell them.
Right.
It's like, why? It was a winner. The Swamp Ash guitar, Swamp Ash Les Paul, was an effing winner. And and what did they end up doing? They change it and ruin it.
Right.
It's Anyways.
Oh well.
Well, time will tell. We'll see where the company's going. But if anyone at Gibson's watching this video, pay attention. Make the stuff that people want. Stop offering. I mean, imagine if Ben & Jerry's decided to get rid of every flavor they had and was like, okay, now we have vanilla bean and we have French vanilla. We also have just regular vanilla. Now we have yellow vanilla and vanilla cream. Everything's vanilla. It's like, because we want you to have that slim taper neck. We're Gibson. We're going to tell you the story. Our most successful guitars were from 52 to 60, and we're going to concentrate on just 59 and 60 as we tell the story. Yeah. Pull up a chair, grab a pillow. We're going to tell you the story of Gibson.
Yeah, but it's like a modernized story. It's like if you've got a fairy tale with a modern twist. You know, you've got Hansel and Gretel going to the witch, but the witch isn't the witch anymore. It's Freddy Krueger.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's like, wait a minute. I don't remember Hansel and Gretel having a witch with like a knived hand.
Right.
Because that's effectively what the new tuning keys and the new hardware setting is. It's like, well, this is probably what they meant in the 50s, but they didn't have it. Well, they did have it. They did have.
I'm curious to find out what the difference between, and if anybody knows, please post it in the comments. So the 61 SG and the 62 SG, there is one difference. There is the retainer wire will be on the ABR1 on the bridge. The question I have then is, other than the pickups, because in 61 they could have been PAFs or they could have been the 57 the patented pickups, and then in 62 the same thing. There's a minor chance they were PAFs. What would be the 64, other than the fact that they definitely are not going to be PAFs? They're going to be the 57s. What other difference would that be between the 62? And why not just re-release the 62 SG then?
Well,
Because
I'm wondering if the 64, the only real difference was the vibrola.
this one has a vibrola on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, probably. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that. This SG has got the so it's basically like the Angus. What was Angus's? 66?
I don't know.
I don't remember.
You know what was interesting about Angus's is it was that
Is vibrola the sidearm one?
I think it still works in like a downward tension thing, but yeah, it's like it's real crude. And it's got that big old plate on the back of it that attaches to the engine.
Oh yeah. That's like the Angus. I love that one.
Yeah.
And they're asking $4,600 for that
without
Angus's without paying Angus a cut. That's insane.
You remember when they released his guitar, that finish was almost black. That was interesting to me.
When they did what?
When they released the Angus guitar all those years ago.
Oh yeah. Well, I think he had a black one. He had a black one, and then he had a dark maroon one, like a and then he had. I watched the show on his, and he's using 9s on that too.
He's tiny. I can't imagine that he's using heavy strings.
Yeah, no, he's using 9s. But his brother, who's only an inch taller than him, was using like 11s or 12s.
He wasn't bending.
No, just playing chords. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, John, let's call this one a day.
All right. That works.
And I got things I got to do here, and then I will talk to you midweek. We'll talk about some of the other things we got going on, folks. I hope we put.
Hey, let me ask you before I go here. I got a text from somebody. They're looking to unload a VHT Pitbull 45 combo, single 12, $400. Great condition.
Wow.
What do you think?
That's a good deal, isn't it?
Yeah. What do you think?
Get it?
Yeah, that may be a topic of conversation next week. We'll see. We shall see.
Even if you want to turn it around. Wait, what is it? $400 for a Pitbull 45 or 100?
Pitbull 45 combo, 112.
Not familiar so much with the 45, but I'm imagining it's probably is it like a JTM clone?
It's EL84s.
Yeah, 84s.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which I like.
Yeah, no, great. I love biasing.
Is it a JTM clone? No.
I'm joking.
No, it's
bias 84s.
What's that?
I was saying I love biasing them.
Oh.
I'm like, the bias 84s.
Right. It's cathode bias.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want to screw with it. I like the Pitbull amps. I had a Pitbull 100 CL. That thing sounded monstrous, but that was also an EL34 amp, and that's going to have a bit more grunt.
I love the amp Stephen Fryette makes. I think Fryette's great.
Yeah, I think this is good quality.
Yeah,
we'll see, folks. I may or may not.
All right,
in the air.
All right,
anyway.
We'll talk about that. Who is it? Who's selling that?
Some dude.
Oh,
I don't know. Craigslist.
All right. Oh, it's on Craigslist. Okay, very good. I'm surprised I haven't seen it.
No, my buddy Chris forwarded it to me.
Nice. Yeah. Where is he out of? What town?
Highland Park.
Not that far, and you go like on a Saturday or a Sunday.
No, I guess not.
20 minutes.
Really.
Yeah.
But
that's the great thing about LA. Everything's 20 minutes away when there's no traffic. When there's traffic, it's between 2 to 4 hours.
Hey, I heard the other day something interesting. I got to confirm it with you. I know we got to get off the line here, but someone told me that the population of Boston is only like 600,000 people. Does that sound right to you?
The city?
Yeah.
Oh, I would make sense, but not. I mean, the state I think has 3 million.
Right. Okay. All right. That's fair. No, I was surprised by it because Boston is like what I would consider like, a major American city. But then you say there's 600,000 people. I didn't realize it was that small.
it's small in small landmass too. I mean, you got a lot of the suburbs around, which is not Boston proper. I mean,
Sure.
I think they include Roxbury, Dorchester, and probably like Hyde Park is in there, part of the city. But yeah, no, it's not. It's probably right. Like I said, there's 3 million in the state.
Yeah,
they
that's
say we have
amazing.
the worst traffic now. It's number 1 for bad traffic.
Huh. I wonder how that's possible. Anyway, whatever.
You'll see. I'll tell you, this city, it's
dragging it on.
It's a
folks.
mess. It's a mess. Here's the thing: they were saying that Boston restaurants were closing left and right, and the Globe was trying to say, "Oh, they can't find them. You know, with the economy doing so well, they can't find employees." Yeah, that's why restaurants go under, because they can't find people to hire. Yeah, how about the fact that your rents are ridiculously high? You're charging $20 to $40 for parking in the city. Nobody wants. What are you going to go drive? Pay $40 for parking to go buy a $30 meal?
Yeah,
in a place that can't pay its rent. I avoid the city at all costs. I think they've destroyed it. In the early 90s, that city was great. You could go anywhere, do anything. Now they've just made it completely, it's unlikable. I will say it's definitely, New York is still a decent city, but I prefer the Southwest. Go to Vegas. You want to have fun, go to Vegas.
That's
all
folks.
I can say.
And with that, we shall wrap this up.
Indeed. All right, everybody. We'll see you next week. John, very good.
Catch you later.
You're listening to Guitar Talk with Dave and John.